Most people moving to Wyoming have heard Cheyenne called the Magic City of the Plains, but almost nobody actually knows where that name came from. And honestly, when you first get here, you might even wonder why a city this size has a nickname that dramatic. But once you understand the history, the growth, and the role Cheyenne has played in the West over 150 years, it actually starts to make a lot of sense. Hey everybody, what's going on? My name is Austin Arnold. I'm a local realtor here in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and on this channel, I help people just like you figure out what it's really like to live in Cheyenne before they make the move. And today we're talking about why Cheyenne is called the Magic City of the Plains, how it got that nickname, and honestly, why the city still carries some of that same energy today. Because this place has a much bigger story than most people realize. The nickname Magic City of the Plains comes from how insanely fast Cheyenne grew in the late 1860s. Before the railroad came through, this area was basically open prairie. Then the Transcontinental Railroad expansion hit, and Cheyenne suddenly became a major stop for the Union Pacific Railroad. And when I say the city exploded overnight, I mean literally overnight. In 1867, people started flooding into the area almost immediately. Businesses, saloons, hotels, supply stores, gambling halls, you name it. Tents and temporary buildings turned into a functioning city almost instantly. That kind of rapid growth was almost unheard of at the time, which is why people started calling it the Magic City of the Plains. It looked like a city had magically appeared out of nowhere. And honestly, when you walk around parts of downtown Cheyenne today, you can still feel some of that Old West Railroad town energy. One thing a lot of people don't realize before moving here is how important the railroad still is to Cheyenne's identity. You'll hear trains constantly here, especially near downtown or older neighborhoods. Some people love that historic feel. Other people moving from quieter suburban environments need a little time to adjust. But the railroad history is everywhere. The historic Cheyenne Depot Museum downtown is one of the biggest reminders of that era. That building is basically the centerpiece of downtown Cheyenne, and it's one of the first places people visiting the city usually end up. And honestly, downtown Cheyenne has done a pretty good job balancing history with modernization. You've still got historic brick buildings and Western architecture, but now mixed in with breweries, coffee shops, local restaurants, and newer businesses. That combination is part of what gives Cheyenne its personality. Now, obviously, Cheyenne isn't growing at that wild railroad pace anymore. And honestly, most locals are perfectly okay with that. One thing you'll notice quickly here is that people generally want growth, but controlled growth. There's a big desire to preserve what makes Cheyenne feel like Cheyenne. People here don't want endless traffic, massive overdevelopment, or the kind of explosive growth you've seen in places like Denver, Austin, or Boise. And because of that, Cheyenne has kept a lot of its small city feel. You can still drive across town in about 15 minutes or so. You'll still run into people you know at the grocery store. A lot of local businesses still feel genuinely local. And that slower pace is actually one of the biggest reasons people relocate here now, especially if they're coming from overcrowded metro areas. Another reason the city earned such a strong reputation early on is because Cheyenne became Wyoming's territorial capital pretty quickly. At the time, it was one of the fastest growing and most economically important places in the region. And even today, you feel the impact of that. Government jobs are a major part of the local economy. You've also got a strong military presence with F.E. Warren Air Force Base right here in town, which brings a lot of stability to the housing market and local economy. That's actually one thing people relocating here tend to appreciate. Cheyenne isn't entirely dependent on just one industry. You've got government, military, railroad, healthcare, education, construction, and energy-related industries all contributing to the economy. Now, is it a huge booming economy like Dallas or Phoenix? No. But it's relatively stable, and that matters a lot if you're planning a long-term move. Now, here's my opinion on this. And honestly, this is something I think a lot of locals would agree with. The magic of Cheyenne today isn't explosive growth anymore, it's the quality of life. Because when people move here from bigger cities, they're usually shocked by how manageable life feels. You're not spending your life sitting in traffic, you're not fighting crowds everywhere you go, you can actually afford a home without needing $1 million budget in many cases, and there's a sense of breathing room here that's getting harder to find. Now, obviously there are trade-offs. You're not going to get the same nightlife or non-stop entertainment as a major metro area. Winters can be windy, shopping and dining options are more limited than larger cities, And if you're somebody who constantly wants big city energy, Cheyenne might feel too quiet. But for a lot of people, especially families and remote workers, that slower pace becomes one of the biggest advantages. One thing I think surprises people moving here is how much community pride there is in Cheyenne. And you really see that during events. Obviously, the biggest one is Cheyenne Frontier Days, during which this city completely transforms. The population basically explodes for a couple of weeks. Hotels fill up, downtown gets packed, and there's this energy that's honestly hard to explain unless you experience it. Even people who aren't huge rodeo fans usually end up appreciating the atmosphere. But there are smaller events too that locals really enjoy. Farmers markets, downtown summer events, Christmas parades, Friday night football games, community fundraisers. Cheyenne still feels like a place where people actually show up for local events. That's something a lot of people moving from larger cities tell me they miss. Here's another thing people don't realize before moving here. Cheyenne may not be huge, but different parts of town feel very different from each other. The older central neighborhoods near downtown have more historic homes, mature trees, and that classic western city feel. Areas like the avenues have a lot of character and older architecture, and people who like historic homes tend to gravitate there. Then you've got newer developments on the east, west, and south sides of town that feel more suburban and modern. And if you go further outside city limits, you can find properties with acreage, mountain views, and a much more rural Wyoming lifestyle. That variety is part of why Cheyenne attracts such a wide range of people. You've got military families, retirees, ranchers, remote workers, young families, and people relocating from high-cost states, all looking for slightly different lifestyles. Now, even though Cheyenne isn't exploding in population, it absolutely is growing. A lot of people are moving here because Colorado has gotten so expensive and crowded. Cheyenne gives people a way to stay relatively close to the Front Range without paying Front Range prices. And you can definitely feel that shift happening. New neighborhoods are being built, more businesses are coming in, downtown continues improving, and there's more interest in Cheyenne now than there was even 5 or 10 years ago. At the same time, it still feels very different from Colorado. And honestly, I think that's intentional. Cheyenne still has a strong Wyoming identity. People here value independence, space, and community more than trends or rapid expansion. That balance is probably one of the biggest reasons people end up staying once they move here. Historically, it's because Cheyenne appeared almost overnight during the railroad boom and became one of the most important cities in the region incredibly fast. But today, I think the nickname means something a little different. I think the magic now is how this city manages to offer a slower, more manageable lifestyle without feeling completely disconnected from the rest of the country. You can still buy a home here at prices that are difficult to find in many Western states. You can still have space, you can still know your neighbors, and you can still get that Western lifestyle that a lot of people feel like has disappeared elsewhere. Now, is Cheyenne perfect? Of course not. The wind is real, the winters can be tough, the city is quieter than many people expect, and it's definitely not for everybody. But for the right person, that combination of affordability, community, history, and breathing room is exactly what makes this place special. And honestly, that's probably the closest thing to magic you'll find here today. If you're thinking about relocating to Cheyenne and want a deeper breakdown of neighborhoods, cost of living, weather, schools, or what life here is actually like day to day, make sure to click the link below and download my free guide to Cheyenne. And if you have questions about buying a home, relocating, or figuring out whether Cheyenne is the right fit for you, feel free to reach out anytime. I'm always happy to help. And if you got value out of this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.